Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our series, A Living Sacrifice. In this lesson for this week, we're going to be looking at some words that John the Baptist spoke himself, and it's simply, "He must increase, but I must decrease." If we look at John the Baptist and we see a little bit of his story, we see that his followers or his disciples were upset because they found that people were now going to Jesus to be baptized. People were now following Jesus instead of following John the Baptist. So they came to tell John the Baptist of this news, and surprisingly to them, he was excited about this. He was not disturbed by this. He wasn't upset. He didn't, throw a fit or anything, but he was excited because this is what he came to fulfill. This is what he was supposed to be doing. He knew this was going to happen. John had never doubted or misunderstood his calling or what his message was supposed to be. He came to be a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not the light, but he was sent to bear witness of the light. And that light, of course, was Jesus Christ. John made it clear that he himself was not the Messiah, but he had only come as a forerunner to herald Christ's coming and to prepare the people to receive him. As the forerunner, John obviously knew that Jesus was more important than he was, and he had the place of preeminence. Therefore, a common message in his preaching was that Jesus was the one to come, that Jesus was the one that mattered. The next day, John saw Jesus coming towards him and said, "Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. This is of whom I have said, after me comes a man who is preferred before me, because he was before me." Some of his disciples had apparently missed the point of John's teaching. Even though they heard this message before, when it became obvious that John's ministry was being eclipsed by Jesus, they were still disturbed. They revered John. After all, John was the first prophetic voice in over 400 years of silence. But when they expressed their concern about the news that they had received, John was not the least bit disturbed. In fact, he was excited about this, and he replied, "Therefore, this joy of mine is fulfilled. He must increase, but I must decrease." John's joy was fulfilled because his mission was fulfilled. He had done God's will, and now that more people were following and going to Jesus instead of him, it was time for him to fade off of the scene so that the spotlight could be on Jesus alone. John was satisfied in submitting to God's will and plan for his life. What his disciples thought he should do was not his concern. His concern was only doing precisely what God had called him to do. When it became clear that it was time for the focus to shift from him to Jesus, he readily stepped aside and did not try to cling to power or position. From the moment his ministry began until it ended with his execution, he sought to lift up Jesus and to put him first. We, of course, are not called to fulfill God's will in exactly the same way that John did, but the same attitude that characterized John can and should characterize our lives. He should increase while we decrease. We are to focus more on him and less on ourselves. His influence on the way that we live our lives should increase while ours decreases. We are to seek to fulfill God's plan and put Jesus first in our lives. I hope that you will join us back here again tomorrow for lesson 2. God bless you. Have a great rest of your day.